Let me tell you something that most men don't realize. In a woman's life, she will meet many men. Some will stay for a while, others will come and go quickly. But only a handful will leave a mark that never fades, a mark that stays etched in her memory, no matter how much time passes, no matter how many other faces she meets after him. And the truth is, the men who stay in her heart forever are not always the ones you think. Most men believe women never forget the ones with the most money, the flashiest lifestyle, or the most charm. They believe it's about looks, about height, about smooth words or fancy cars. And yes, those things might catch a woman's eye for a moment. They might even impress her for a season. But here's the secret. What really makes a man unforgettable has little to do with what he shows on the outside. What lasts is the way he touched her inside. And when I say touched, I don't mean physical. I mean the kind of presence that stirred her emotions so deeply that she couldn't erase him even if she wanted to. You see, women are emotional beings. We don't carry memories the same way men do. A man might remember a woman by her beauty or by the way she looked on a certain day. But a woman remembers the way a man made her feel. That is the imprint. That is the memory that lingers like a shadow even when the man himself is long gone. Think about it. How many times have you passed by a woman and thought nothing of it? You might have spoken to her, you might have joked, you might have even gone on a date, but in her mind, you faded away. And then there are other times when, without even trying, you left a mark. Maybe you said something in a way that struck her differently. Maybe you carried yourself with such calm confidence that she couldn't stop replaying it in her head. Maybe you listened to her in a moment where no one else had the patience to. That's the difference. It's not about what you give. It's about what you awaken. Here's a story to show you what I mean. A woman once told me about a man she met at a cafe. She had gone there to get some work done, her mind clouded by stress. She was tired, drained, and barely wanted to talk. But this man sat across from her, and eventually a small conversation began. He didn't try to impress her with his job. He didn't lean in with cheesy lines. He simply noticed the way she sighed after checking her phone and said, "Long day?" She laughed softly, surprised by the gentleness of his tone. They spoke for only 20 minutes. That's it, 20 minutes. But here's the shocking part. Years later, when she was in a completely different city, dating someone new, she remembered him. Not because of his looks. She admitted she barely recalled his face. Not because of what he bought her. He didn't buy her anything. She remembered him because in those 20 minutes, he gave her something rare. He gave her a feeling of calm in a chaotic day. He made her feel seen without asking for anything in return. And to her, that was unforgettable. Do you see now? It's not about being the loudest, the richest, or the flashiest man in the room. It's about what you spark inside her that most men never even notice. And here's another truth. Women themselves don't always understand why certain men stick in their minds. A woman might try to explain it by saying, "He was different," or, "I don't know, I just can't forget him." But deep down, what she really means is, "He touched a part of me that most men never reach." And when that happens, no amount of time or distance can erase it. This is why some men spend their whole lives chasing women but never become unforgettable. They chase attention, they chase beauty, they chase numbers. But the men women never forget, they're not chasing. They're grounded. They're steady. They're intentional without being desperate. And because of that, their presence lingers. Now let me be honest with you. Not every man will become unforgettable to every woman. And that's not the point. The point is to understand what makes a man impossible to erase once she's experienced him. Because when you learn this, you stop wasting energy on the wrong things. You stop trying to perform, to act, to impress in shallow ways. Instead, you focus on embodying the deeper traits that leave a mark that time itself can't erase. And that's what we're about to explore. There are 5 kinds of men women never forget. 5 types who live in her memory long after she's moved on, long after she's convinced herself she doesn't think about him anymore. These are the men who, with or without intention, awaken something inside her so deeply that every man who comes after is measured against that standard. Now I need you to listen closely, because once you hear this, you'll realize something important. You don't have to be everything. You don't have to perform tricks or bend yourself into shapes just to get her to notice you. You only need to embody these timeless traits, traits that women across the world, across cultures, across generations never forget. In the next parts, we're going to uncover each one. And as I describe them, I want you to ask yourself, which of these do I already embody, and which do I need to grow into? Because the men who master even one of these traits can leave a mark. But the men who embody all 5, they are the ones women never stop thinking about. So let's begin. The first man a woman never forgets is the one who gave her real safety. Now let's pause here, because when most men hear the word safety, they think only about physical protection. They imagine stepping in if someone insults her, or being the man who would fight off danger. And while that's part of it, the truth is much deeper. Real safety is not only physical, it is emotional, mental, and spiritual. It is the kind of safety that allows a woman to take off her mask, to exhale, and to feel like she can finally rest. Here's what most men don't realize. Women walk through life with their guard up. Even the most confident, independent woman carries invisible armor. She's had to. She's had to protect herself from judgment, from disappointment, from men who took advantage of her trust, from friends who betrayed her secrets, from family that sometimes dismissed her feelings. And so, by the time you meet her, she already has walls. She has defenses that she's built carefully over years. Now imagine what it feels like when she meets a man who doesn't demand she tear those walls down, but instead creates a space where she wants to lower them herself. That is unforgettable. Think about it like this. A woman told me once about 2 men she dated back to back. The first was charming, funny, and bold. He knew how to sweep her off her feet, and at first she thought she had met someone special. But whenever she tried to talk about her fears, her insecurities, or even her ambitions, he would laugh them off. "You worry too much," he'd say. Or, "Come on, just relax. You're overthinking it." At first, she shrugged it off, thinking maybe she was being sensitive. But over time, she realized she never felt safe to be herself with him. She always had to edit her words, hold back her emotions, and keep a piece of herself hidden. Then came the second man. He wasn't as outwardly charming. He wasn't the loudest in the room, but he carried a quiet steadiness. One evening, after a long day, she broke down and admitted something she hadn't told anyone. She braced herself for the usual response, a dismissive laugh or an awkward change of subject. But instead he leaned closer, looked her straight in the eye, and said, "That must have been heavy to carry. I'm glad you trusted me enough to share it. Do you see the difference?" He didn't try to fix it. He didn't minimize it. He simply gave her space to exist without judgment. In that moment, she felt safe in a way she hadn't in years, and that safety was more attractive than anything else. Long after the relationship ended, she remembered him, not because of how he looked, not because of what he gave her, but because he created a place where she could finally breathe. Men often underestimate how powerful this is. But let me tell you, for a woman, safety is oxygen. Without it, nothing else matters. You could be the richest man in the world, and if she feels unsafe in your presence, she will never fully open up to you. But if you give her true safety, she will remember you for the rest of her life. And here's the thing. Safety isn't loud. It's not about grand gestures or dramatic protection. It's about the little moments. It's the way you listen without interrupting. It's the way you stay calm when she's emotional instead of matching her chaos. It's the way you keep her secrets instead of using them later in an argument. It's the way you respect her boundaries even when it would be easier not to. These are the moments that tell her, I am safe here. Let me give you another story. There was a woman who grew up in a house where her feelings were always dismissed. Anytime she cried, her parents told her to toughen up. Anytime she expressed excitement, they told her not to get her hopes too high. Over time, she learned to hide her emotions. She learned to keep her real self locked away because it never felt safe to share it. Years later, she met a man who noticed this. He noticed how she would start to say something vulnerable, then stop halfway. He noticed how she laughed quickly after showing sadness, as if to cover it up. Instead of pushing her to just open up, he waited. He gave her patience. He created an environment where she could test him with little truths. And every time she did, he held them gently. One night, she cried in front of him, really cried, for the first time in years. And he didn't try to shut it down. He didn't tell her she was overreacting. He just held her. That moment became etched in her soul, because for the first time she felt safe enough to be raw. That man gave her something no one else had. Even if their relationship didn't last forever, she could never forget the man who gave her back her freedom to feel. So let me ask you, do you give women safety, or do you take it away? Do you brush off her feelings, or do you honor them? Do you keep her trust, or do you break it when it's convenient? Do you calm the storm, or do you add to it? Because these small choices determine whether you'll be just another man in her past or the man who lives in her memory forever. And here's a powerful truth. The man who gives safety is not always the most exciting in the beginning. He may not come across as thrilling or adventurous right away. But over time, safety becomes the deepest form of attraction. When a woman feels safe, she can fall in love fully. She can surrender without fear. And when she experiences that, she will never forget the man who gave it to her. That is the first man who lives forever in a woman's mind. The one who gave her safety in a world that constantly made her feel unsafe. The second man a woman never forgets is the one who truly listened to her. Now, this may sound simple, but let me tell you something most men don't understand. Women are constantly surrounded by noise. Everyone has an opinion. Everyone has advice. Everyone is quick to tell her what she should do, how she should feel, and what she should think. But very few people actually listen. And when I say listen, I don't mean the kind of fake listening where you nod your head while waiting for your turn to speak. I don't mean letting her talk while you scroll through your phone. I don't mean listening only long enough to figure out how to fix the problem. I mean real listening. The kind where she feels seen, where she feels heard, where she feels that for once her words are not floating into the air but landing somewhere safe. That kind of listening, it is rare. And because it's rare, it's unforgettable. Let me tell you a story. A woman once told me about 2 conversations that changed her perspective forever. The first was with a man she had been dating casually for a few months. She was telling him about her day, how stressful work had been, how her boss kept piling on responsibilities, and how she felt like she was burning out. Before she could even finish, he cut her off and said, "Well, you should just quit. It's not that hard. Why are you stressing so much? You're making it a big deal." Now, from his point of view, maybe he thought he was being helpful. Maybe he thought offering a solution was the right move. But to her, it felt like dismissal. It felt like he wasn't really hearing her, just trying to shut down the conversation quickly. She stopped talking after that, because why bother? The second conversation was with a man she barely knew at the time, just a friend. She mentioned the same stress at work, and instead of cutting her off, he leaned in, listened, and asked, "That sounds like a lot. How long has this been going on? She was caught off guard because she wasn't used to someone digging deeper. She opened up more, and he listened without interrupting. At the end, he simply said, "I can tell that's been heavy on you. It makes sense you feel this way. No solutions, no quick fixes, just understanding." Guess which man she remembered? See, listening is not about fixing. It's about presence. It's about making her feel that her voice matters, that her emotions are valid, and that she doesn't have to fight to be heard. Most men miss this. They think attraction is all about looks, money, or confidence. And yes, those things play a role. But do you know what makes a woman's walls fall? It's the man who can sit with her in silence, nod at the right moments, ask thoughtful questions, and reflect back what she said without turning it against her. That creates intimacy deeper than any smooth line ever could. Think about this. How many people in her life actually listen to her? Her boss probably doesn't. Her coworkers are too busy with their own problems. Her friends might half listen while waiting for their turn to talk. Even her family might dismiss her with, "Oh, you'll be fine." So when she meets a man who listens, really listens, he stands out. He becomes a safe harbor in a noisy world. And women never forget that. Here's another example. There was a woman who carried a painful memory from her past. She had told herself she would never share it with anyone because every time she hinted at it before, people brushed her off. One evening, while sitting with a man she was getting to know, the topic of childhood came up. She hesitated, but then decided to test him. She shared a small piece of her story, bracing herself for the usual awkward response. But instead of brushing it off, he leaned in and said, "That must have been hard. I'm sorry you went through that." She broke down crying. Not because of the memory itself, but because for the first time, someone actually acknowledged it. He didn't change the subject. He didn't minimize it. He didn't judge her. He simply listened. And that moment sealed him in her memory. Because for years she had carried the weight alone, and with just a few words he showed her she wasn't crazy, she wasn't dramatic, and she wasn't invisible. That is the power of listening. Here's what you need to understand. Women don't always want solutions. Sometimes they just want space. Space to release what's inside without being judged. Space to share their fears without being told they're weak. Space to speak their truth without someone trying to twist it. And when you give her that space, you become unforgettable. Think about the men she forgets. They're the ones who interrupt, who joke at the wrong time, who turn everything into a competition, or who rush her feelings because they're uncomfortable with emotions. She forgets them because they never made her feel safe enough to be herself. But the man who listens, really listens, he becomes a rare memory. She remembers the tone of his voice, the way his eyes didn't drift away, the way she felt lighter after talking to him. Even years later, when she's with someone else, she might find herself comparing. She might think, "Why doesn't this man hear me the way that one did?" And just like that, your presence lingers. So let me ask you again. Are you really listening to the women in your life? Or are you just waiting for your turn to speak? Do you give them space to unfold? Or do you rush them because you're uncomfortable? Do you reflect back what they said? Or do you drown them in advice they never asked for? Because here's the truth. Women don't forget the man who listened. Not because of the words he said, but because of the silence he held. Silence that made her feel seen. Silence that made her feel valued. Silence that told her she mattered. That silence is louder than any smooth line. And it stays with her long after you're gone. The third man a woman never forgets is the one who challenged her in the right way. Now, this is where a lot of men get it wrong. They think women want comfort all the time. They think women want a man who agrees with everything, who says yes to everything, who bends himself just to keep her happy. But here's the truth. A woman doesn't respect that. A woman doesn't remember the man who gave her everything she asked for without question. She forgets him because deep down, she never felt his strength. The man she remembers is the one who had boundaries, the one who knew who he was, what he stood for, and refused to lose himself just to please her. That kind of man, he stands out. Let me give you an example. There was a woman who dated a man who gave her everything she wanted. If she said, "I want to go here," he dropped everything to make it happen. If she got upset, he instantly apologized, even when he hadn't done anything wrong. If she pushed his buttons, he swallowed his pride and kept silent. At first, she thought this was what she wanted. A man who adored her, who never disagreed, who made her feel like the center of his world. But after a while, she noticed something. She didn't trust his strength. She didn't trust his backbone. Because every time she tested him, he folded. And if he folded with her, she started to wonder, would he fold with life? Would he fold with other people? Would he fold when it really mattered? And then she met another man. This man adored her too, but he had limits. He didn't let her walk all over him. When she tried to push his buttons, he didn't snap, but he also didn't cave. He stood calm, steady, and unshaken. He was kind, but not weak. He was giving, but not spineless. When she crossed a line, he looked her in the eye and said, "I care about you, but I'm not going to accept that." At first, it frustrated her. She wasn't used to it. She thought, how dare he not agree with me? But deep down, she respected it. Because for the first time, she felt she was with a man who couldn't be broken so easily. A man who would stand firm even under pressure. A man she could lean on, because he wouldn't lose himself in the process. And that memory stayed. See, women test men. Not because they want to be difficult, but because they want to know your edges. They want to know if you can handle pressure, if you can keep your center when things get messy, if you can stay calm when she throws storms your way. She doesn't consciously think of it as a test, but that's what it is. And when you fold, when you bend too much, when you lose yourself, you fail that test. But when you hold steady, calm, grounded, respectful, she never forgets it. Let me tell you another story. There was a couple who had been together for a while. One night, during an argument, the woman shouted, "You never listen to me. You don't care about my feelings." Now, many men in that situation would panic. They'd rush to apologize, even if they had been listening. They'd scramble to smooth things over, terrified of losing her affection. But this man didn't. He stayed calm. He let her speak, let her vent, but then he said firmly, "I hear you, but I won't accept you speaking to me with disrespect. We can talk about this, but not like that." She was silent. At first she was angry, but later she admitted she respected him more for it, because he didn't lose himself. He didn't yell back, but he also didn't let her words trample over his dignity. That balance, firm but calm, strong but controlled, is unforgettable. Here's what you need to understand. Women don't forget the man who challenges them to rise, not the man who fights with them constantly, not the man who tries to dominate them, but the man who holds such a strong sense of self that it naturally pushes her to be better too. He challenges her laziness by being disciplined. He challenges her excuses by living with purpose. He challenges her moods by staying grounded. He challenges her bad behavior by calmly setting boundaries. And he does it not out of ego, not out of insecurity, but out of love and respect for himself and for her. That kind of man leaves an imprint, because here's the truth. Comfort alone doesn't make a woman grow. Challenge does, and growth is addictive. A woman may fight you in the moment, she may resist, she may roll her eyes, but deep down she knows you're the reason she's becoming stronger, wiser, better. And she will never forget that. Now, let's be clear. Challenging a woman doesn't mean trying to win every argument. It doesn't mean putting her down to make yourself feel big. That's not strength. That's insecurity. Real strength is quiet. It doesn't need to prove itself. It doesn't need to shout. It simply stands. And when a woman meets a man who can stand firm in himself without needing to overpower her, she knows she's found something rare. Because most men either collapse under pressure or swing to the other extreme, trying to dominate. But the man who can balance strength with love, boundaries with respect, firmness with calm, that man is unforgettable. She may not say it out loud. She may even act annoyed in the moment. But later, when she looks back, she'll think, he made me better. He didn't let me settle for less. He challenged me to rise. And that thought will keep you alive in her memory long after you're gone. That is the third man a woman never forgets, the one who challenged her in the right way. The last man a woman never forgets is the one who protected her peace. Most men think women only remember the thrill, the passion, the drama. But deep down, what stays in her heart is the man who made her feel safe, the man whose presence was calm, steady, and free from chaos. See, many men bring storms into a woman's life. They argue over small things, project their anger, and make her carry more than she already does. But the man she never forgets is the opposite. He doesn't silence her emotions. He makes them safe. With him, she can cry without shame, vent without fear, and rest without walking on eggshells. Think of it like this. She may forget the man who bought her gifts, but she never forgets the man whose arms felt like home, the man who didn't add to her stress, but gave her peace. That's rare. And because it's rare, she remembers it forever. That's the fifth man a woman never forgets, the one who protected her peace.